Hello traders, Day Trader Matt here of businesswithtrading.com, doing a trading strategy recap for the 23rd of April, Thursday. And today was another interesting day. It was very similar to yesterday, where the morning kind of sucked and then we actually had a nice trade in the afternoon. And this was the exact same, except this trade was a little bit better. Um, Today what we did is we were 1 for 2, 3 trades, and we dropped 3.25 points. Our first 2 trades were stop outs, just like yesterday. Our first trade was we shorted here and we got stopped out shortly after that. And as the market did come down, we decided to get long, which in hindsight was a horrible idea. But, we got stopped out of that. Market came down, did bounce a little bit, and we kept an eye on things to see what was actually playing out. And we ended up getting long over, we actually got long right in here. And we were able to, take some profit up here and then basically get out over here. So that's pretty much what we did. And, we closed the room in here, and then, the market just shot up. It was actually interesting how that happened. We closed the room right over here on this candle. We saw this. I saw the market starting to shoot up. I did grab this trade over here, and, I was able to write it up, making everything back that I had lost over here, and then some. It doesn't really matter as far as the stats go, as far as the trading room, because, in the stats we lost 3.25 points. It is what it is. But it's interesting to see that, the morning was kind of crappy, but the afternoon was really good. And you have maybe 10 days, maybe 20 days out of the year that are like this. I might be overestimating with 20, but it's, something like that. You have a handful of days out of the year that are like this, where the mornings are just horrible and the afternoons are really good. And that's why I always say I trade about 1%, 2% of the afternoons in the entire year. Usually I trade in the morning, I'm done, and I'm on to something else. With the trading room, usually I'm, working, or with the website, I'm usually working with other clients. All the promotions I did in March, I'm doing a lot of, coaching and stuff like that, which is awesome. Because I've always enjoyed, meeting people and, working, kind of like the psychology angle. When I was younger, I had people who would come to me, whenever I had jobs. They would come to me and ask me, tell me their problems and ask me to help them out. And some people were 20, 30 years older than me, and I thought it was just fun. I was like, well, see what I can do. But then more people started coming, and I realized, hey, I kind of have a gift here. And where's the best place to use that information? Trading, of course. You don't make any money as a psychologist. Being a teacher, you don't really make any money. So trading is really the best thing. And then having this website, which when it started, it wasn't really planned at all. If you don't know the story, my friends basically asked me, hey, you should teach this stuff. Because I was working with them, and I was just, we were just hanging out, having fun, and I was telling them my trades, and they were trying to trade the market. Some of them were good, some of them were fairly new, and more people started asking me for advice. And then one of my friends was like, hey man, you should start a website with this. And a business with trading was born. It was it's the best thing I've done ever. So, but anyway, back to today. I talk about how it's important to have patience. It's important to have consistency. But it's also important to not only have consistency in your trading, but in your mentality as well. And that's why I got into that, psychology story that I told a little bit ago. Because our first trade was a stop out. All right. Well, maybe the market's going up. We'll get long. No, we got stopped out again. 2 stop outs. 1 stop out sucks. 2 stop outs is horrible. I'm glad we didn't have 3 because that's even worse. There's not a word that you can say on air that sums that up properly. So being able to wait on our third trade and be able to work it where we were able to, take an 8-point loss, which is what we had, down to only a 3.25 point loss. And you might look at it and say, well, that was a bad day. Someone else made money. You lost money. People pay you for this. What's wrong with you, Matt? But you have to look at it in the overall thing. I never claim that I'm like the best trader in the world. I have a methodology that works. It works really well. And some days you're going to lose money. It is what it is. Some days you're going to lose money consistently. Consistently is not a good word. But you're going to lose money twice in a week. Or maybe 3 times in a week. It happens. And the main thing is to be able to mitigate that as much as possible. To lower that. 3.25 points when you're up over 120 points is a drop in the bucket. When you're only up 3.25 points and you lose 3.25 points, now that's a bigger issue. But when you're up 120 points in a month and you drop 3.25 points, so there's always something you have to look at. You have to gauge it with. Your money managers always compare themselves against the S&P because they want something to compare it with. How many points did you make last month? Well, what are you doing this month? Or, the month is, a week left approximately. What have you done the 3 weeks prior? Something like that. You always want to be able to compare it. How much are you risking? What are you averaging? That's what you look at. So far we've had 2 stop outs. That's the most we've had consecutively during the month of April, or during the year of 2015 actually, which is really good. So that's the way you kind of have to look at things. To be able to have that, that clear mentality of being able to say, well, what I'm doing right now in the market is not working. I'm going to wait a little bit, see what's happening, and then take it from there and see if I can do anything. If I can't, I'm not going to make any more trades. It takes a strong person to do that. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying I've had a lot of practice. Practice makes permanent. Whatever you practice, that's what is going to be permanent. If you practice eating a lot of fast food, you're going to end up being fat. Because you've practiced eating fast food, then you become automatically drawn to fast food. Because you've practiced that. So now, to practice not eating fast food is going to be a little more difficult for you. Maybe you've done that, maybe you haven't. I don't know. But you can probably find an example of somebody out there in the world that you've seen. Whether you know this person or you've just seen them. Maybe you work close to a fast food place and you see the same person over and over again every day. I don't know. But I'm sure you have somebody out there that you can see and, get this reference. So anyway, hopefully something that I talked about today kind of hit home for you. You got something out of it. If you got something out of it or you want to add something to the conversation, you can always put them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have an excellent rest of your day. And I'll see you back here in the markets. Thank you.